Welcome to Bourbon and Branches and No BS from the center of town, located beautifully in the center of downtown Fredericksburg, Virginia. And your host of the podcast, Susie Woolham.
How come I have to be the host all the time?
Well, would you like to pass off the host baton to someone else?
I'm just curious. I feel like I should have a better title than host.
And I tried to call you the master of the house one time. You didn't like that. And then I feel like every single time we try to come up with and nothing I have found you like so far.
Well, no, I like everything. I just feel like maybe we should change it up.
Okay, sure. We can change it up.
So I want to be
your director for the evening, your captain of the ship.
Oh, can I be the cruise director?
Your pilot of the plane.
No, cruise director.
Cruise director it is. I'm writing it down. Okay. I like it.
All right, there we go.
This is your cruise director for the evening, Susie Woolham.
Dun, 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 dun. Here I am.
Here you are.
Here I am.
How beautiful.
Isn't that lovely?
That is lovely.
That fun? That was
I
good.
Also feel like you should have a hat of some sort, but anyway, we'll talk about that later. We'll shop hats. It's fine.
All right.
Okay.
A cruise director hat. I'll get on that.
I like it. So today's episode, we're going to be trusting our gut.
We are trusting our gut. Today we are talking about gut health, an uncomfortable, not always pleasant subject for some people. But we're going to have fun. We're going to talk about gut health, and we're going to talk about why it's important to trust your gut and love your gut and pooping.
That is a great topic, actually, and a great series of topics, because how can you have a gut health conversation without talking about that? But that took me off guard. It wasn't in my notes.
It was supposed to take you off guard. That's
good.
why it's not in your notes. You know, that whole sort of entity as it occurs in the world. So that's why we kind of left that one out and said, hey, going to be talking about pooping.
I like it. And now we're going to be able to get our teenagers to listen to the podcast, because now we've made it interesting for them. So if you would like to share this with a younger person, it's about pooping.
It's about pooping.
Love it.
How many times are we allowed to say pooping?
I think as many as we want, actually, which may make it kind of fun throughout the episode. So it may make it kind of fun. Hey, let's talk a little bit about your in-person experience here. If you were local to downtown Fredericksburg and you've had the opportunity to come into the center of town and the shop here, I'm sure that you know it is fantastic and full of so many wonderful little corners that take you to different places here. And it's really something. It's a beautiful shop.
Well, thank you. We really like it. I think I try to make as much use as I can. We're just over 750 square feet, including a therapy room where we do massage and Reiki and reflexology and client consultations. So the space that I have left for retail, we have to be really, really particular on who comes in here. I really only work with the best companies in our industry. I'm very, very particular about what actually comes into the shop and takes up space.
I've noticed over time your filtering process actually for your vendors and letting certain products in your store, you have a very high bar for that.
I do have a very high bar. I don't carry anything in here that rates above a 2 on the environmental working group site. It's important to me that the people that are coming here from the hospital or from their doctor's office or because they've been referred because of a health condition, that they can come in and trust that the shampoo or body wash or body lotion, the product that they get is going to be safe for them while they're in treatment, safe for their families, safe for their children. I always tell people the one and only shampoo brand that I sell here, if your children ate the whole bottle, the worst thing that would happen is they might get an upset stomach. But there's nothing in it that'll hurt them.
That's fantastic. I mean, that makes you feel good about when you come in and make a purchase, and you may have never, as a consumer, heard of that brand, but you trust the fact that that's your filtering process.
I hope so. I hope that it inspires trust in people. Trust, I think, is the one thing that is lacking so much anymore. There's so much misinformation on the internet. There's so much information everywhere. I hope that they know that they can come here and that I've done the research, I've done the vetting process. There's never a product that comes in here that I don't do at least 10 to 20 hours worth of research on, and then I try it on myself, and then it either goes to the massage therapist, who's a friend of mine who works here, or to a local veterinarian, and she either uses it or uses it on her animals before it ever hits my floor.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Well,
and that just shows, exactly how much you value people
all my
coming in here.
people.
Yeah, exactly.
I do. They're important to me. It's their life. It's their life choice. And they're trying to make a healthy choice. So I want to make sure that what they're getting is the best that I can get. And I've fired companies just because I realized that maybe they weren't as honest as they appeared to be, or maybe they changed their company policy. And I really have no room for somebody, because I feel like if they're not going to be honest with me about something simple like a shipping policy or quantity minimum, if there's some sort of disparagement in that initial relationship with them, then I know that they're not going to be honest with my client and the products that they're providing for them.
So you can trust your gut when you're coming into the
that was
center of town.
You're so clever. That was really good.
Thank you very much. Let's talk about gut health. I feel like we could do about 7 episodes on this.
We could, and I realized that we were on a time constraint today, and as we usually are. And the whole point of doing these podcasts is just to give somebody a little lagniappe, a little taste, a little something to make them hungry and excited about learning more, and maybe give them a good place to start. And gut health is such a hugely uncomfortable subject, but you can't go on Pinterest or Facebook or any website or any social media or any commercial. You cannot turn on any major television station without being inundated for a commercial for something that provides you with gut health. And most people have no idea what that even means or why they should have gut health. They just know that the TV tells them or somebody tells them, and they know that they need to do it, but they have no idea where to start.
I felt like I was introduced to the importance of gut health at a very young age, and I was glad that I was. But at a very young age, my grandfather always said, your heart's in your gut, everything is there. Everything starts there. And it really does. I feel like our emotional well-being, our physical well-being, it's all tied. And that is truly physically and emotionally at our core.
It absolutely is. And you're right. And you don't even know why. The very first thing that forms as our cells begin to divide at the moment of conception, the very first thing that forms is our gut tube.
Interesting.
So we should trust our gut. Our gut is where our entire line of defense lies. And I don't think people realize this. Every aspect of health in the body comes from the gut. Everything. When I have people who come in here and they say, I have seasonal allergies, I just need to pick up something for seasonal allergies, the first thing I say is, well, are you doing vinegar water? And they're like, well, you don't understand. I'm sneezing, I'm coughing. I'm like, right. Are you doing vinegar water? Are you doing something to remove the mucus from your gut? Because you can't have mucus in your nose if you don't have mucus in your gut. So gut health and addressing our gut health and making sure that we know what we're eating and when we're eating and why we should be eating it. People think it's really complicated. And I think that people look at some of these things and they're under the impression that this is really, really challenging, that it requires a lot of time and effort and energy to get themselves to a level of health. And that being said, and as you like to say, you saw the sign on the door, we need to talk about pooping. Because I have never seen a society of such shy bowel people as I have the American citizen. I'm sorry. It's the truth. We're so sterile and we're so clean. We don't want to, it smells or it's dirty or somebody's going to know. And there's this whole sort of ideology behind, I can't poop in public. I can't poop here. And trust me, folks, if we would just come to terms with what's happening there, it really is not that bad.
Yes.
So myth number 1 that we're going to explore, and I'm going to hit this one first to give you some time to cope with it. So you should have, Susie's fact number 1, you should have a full bowel movement with every meal that you eat a day, which means that if you are the average American citizen, you should have 3 bowel movements a day, not 3 a week, not 1 a week, not 3 a month. And I realize that this is challenging to people, but if you understand how your gut works and what it's doing and extracting nutrients and not extracting nutrients and allowing this sort of waste to build up. We really need to become more comfortable with the whole I gotta poop kind of situation.
I feel like there's a nice introduction for getting comfortable. I mean, we all are very familiar with the REM song "Everybody Hurts." Let's make it "Everybody Poops."
There's actually a book.
Let's sing it. Let's,
Now-
everybody poops. I mean, I feel if you
you
make
can
it
sing,
something,
you do it so good.
Thank you. But if you make it something
Healthy,
fun and healthy,
It absolutely is. And one of the things that I see is that, children when they're in diapers, as soon as they poop, I'm gonna figure out how many times in this sentence I can say it. When we have a baby and they're in diapers and they poop, we say, "Did you poop? Did you poop? Oh, we got to clean up the poop. Oh, you stink." Right? This is the first thing we tell them.
Yes, it's
so from
negative
birth, we have
immediately.
immediately told them that they stink.
Yes.
And I wonder how many more times I can say it if I can keep you laughing. If we address it a little differently, that it's just like brushing your teeth, it's just like washing your face, it's just like anything else that we do, that this is part of what our body does. And instead, we started, making vomiting the new poop word, like, we can't talk.
Yeah.
It's just people go, "Oh no, she's vomiting, she's sick." Well, how come we can talk about that?
Yes.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about it.
I do also think that another way we could get comfortable is by, when you're teaching your child to actually be potty trained, there's a lot of congratulatory. If we had congratulatory moments in our household, I think that would also go, you walk out, I pooped. Yes.
I know, right? There should be a poop party.
Thank
There should be a
you.
poop popsicle.
There should be a high five or a something.
I think so.
Why not celebrate?
I love this idea.
Yeah.
We should.
Just some
We're
ways-
going to be millionaires with
Some ways we could get comfortable.
We should do it. The other thing is just sort of addressing the fact that it does happen. Everybody does it. So I'm going to ask you to put on your special little dealing with things hat right now. So when you poop, it should be the consistency of a ripe banana. If it's not, then we need to address that. Whether or not it floats lets us know how you are dealing with fats in your body, whether your body's able to process fats or not. So we need to be lookers. This is another big thing I see. People come in and want to do a cleanse, and I say, well, you have to look. And I have seen people walk away from cleansing the gut because they're terrified to look in their own toilet. Like they just can't even conceptualize the idea. So we have to become comfortable with our own pooping, not necessarily other people's pooping unless they're your children, and only to a certain age. And then,
Sure.
And then we're done with that
Yeah.
too. But we have to be comfortable with the fact that this is a natural body rhythm. It's moving waste out of our body. It's helping to keep us healthy. It's helping to keep the appropriate bacteria where they need to be and the bad bacteria where they need to be. Okay?
Okay.
So in looking at the gut and in looking at what a dysfunctional gut looks like, I'm sure we've all seen and heard about things like leaky gut or GERD. There are a number of different health conditions that go along with an unhealthy gut. But what I think is more important is understanding why. Why do you have an unhealthy gut? The number one thing that I see with people with an unhealthy gut, sorry, gang, you knew I was going here, sugar. Sugar is so decimating to the internal system, and it doesn't matter to me if you're doing a raw sugar or a white sugar. I mean, I don't know why anybody would use white sugar for anything, but sorry, white sugar people, growers of the world,
I think it's kind of
processors of the world.
That's not a good deal.
But sugar in the gut, the body doesn't know what to do with it. It's a lot of empty calories. It causes a lot of irritation and inflammation in the gut. So typically when someone comes to me and tells me that they're having a gut problem, the first thing I do is take them off all white foods. No white sugar, no white flour, no white rice. And a lot of their problems will dissipate very quickly just from kind of moving those types of food out. So sugar, I'm all about a little bit of honey here and there. Some people like agave. I'm not so much of a fan. I'm a maple syrup, molasses, honey kind of a girl. If you need to use sugar, make sure that you're using as close to a raw sugar as you can get, or buy sugar cane and use that juice that's coming from that sugar cane. That's a wonderful thing to do as well. Number 2, and we're just going to really gloss over this one, is alcohol. Alcohol can cause some definite dysbiosis in the gut, but we know how to keep that in check. And so we're just going to skim over that one. Are we agreed?
We're agreed. I do have a side question with that. I mean,
All right. Does it involve bourbon?
well, no.
All right.
We don't mess with that.
No.
But if you are noticing that you're having some gut issues, these are things that you address with people from the go. Let's talk about your sugar intake. Let's talk about your alcohol intake. So, easy to sort of look at and say, maybe I'm a little too far on this, maybe
Yep.
I'm a little too far on that, and should back off on that. And you could see some pretty quick results, is what you're saying.
And when people come in, and one of the first questions I ask them is, because I feel like if we're going to be uncomfortable, let's just hit it out of the gate. I ask them, how often do you go to the bathroom?
Right.
Boom, right there. I'm going to have a really good idea of what we're looking at. After you eat, how do you feel? So if you had this for dinner, how would you feel? If you had this for dinner, how would you feel? How do you feel after? And then I start looking at gas, bloating, things like that. Sleep. Gut dysbiosis in sleep. One of the things I see most often is people are either starving in the middle of the night, they're hungry because they don't eat enough of what they should be eating, and their body gets hungry in the middle of the night, and they get an upset stomach, and now they're awake, and it just becomes a cycle. Pesticides that are in food, that's a big one, but that really comes later on down the line. Sugar, alcohol, these are the 2 major ones that I am going to ask about. And I'm not judging someone. I need to know.
Right.
They'll say, oh, well, I only have a teaspoon of sugar in my 1 cup of coffee every morning. Okay. Well, then what do you have for breakfast? Well, I have a bagel and I have oatmeal and I go, well, all right, so let's look at the 16 tablespoons of sugar that you're actually eating during a day.
Right.
And I drink a Diet Coke in the middle of the afternoon, so I don't get any sugar. It's like, oh, all right, well.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're seeing the problem here.
You can, and sometimes, bringing that up, people get really defensive because you start
of
taking
course.
away the things that they love.
Right. But also they're coming for a reason and they say, I'm in pain, or I can't sleep well at night, or when I
That's
wake
the
up
theory.
I'm having, it's so they come and they want the help. And, unfortunately it does go to some of our favorite,
Right. But then if I tell
little
them they can't have their
go-tos.
Malamars,
Right. They get a little upset.
they do get upset, which, don't get me wrong, I love me a good Malamar here and there. But the other thing I see a lot of, and it does cause a lot of lingering issues in the gut, and right now we really are just talking about physical things that are causing problems, are antibiotics. I know that there are times in life when antibiotics need to be used. I also know that there's a lot of overuse of antibiotics. I also know that a lot of the antibiotics that are being used in animals that are then slaughtered to become food, which those antibiotics transfer to you.
Yeah.
You are affected by those. If you don't have healthy bacteria in the gut to start with, you don't have a starting point. So one of the things that I see people do a lot is that they will say, well, I'm taking an antibiotic, so I'm going to take probiotics at the same time to help rebuild my gut. Well, that's great in theory, except that you're taking a prescription medication that its job is to kill off all the bacteria. So if you start taking heavy doses of probiotics at the same time, is it really going to address the outside source that's causing the infection, or is it going to address what you've put in? Do you see what I'm saying?
So your body could be really confused in this.
Very confused. So I do tell people that, yes, you should take probiotics while you're doing antibiotics, but if you're doing a 7-day course, I start them at the end of day 5. If you're doing a 10-day course, I do them at the end of day 7. And then that way your body has had the time with the prescription for it to kill off whatever it was that it was supposed to be killing off in the first place. Now you're kind of coming into that zone where the body's trying to rebuild something good, bad, or indifferent as far as bacteria in it. Let's build good bacteria. So adding them to the end of a course of antibiotics is something that I tell people that they could certainly look into, or they can certainly try, and it does help to get that gut, which is now raw and unhappy, it does help to get it kind of back up to a healthy speed.
I'm really glad you brought up probiotics because I feel like we could do a whole episode on that. Obviously, it's a huge topic. But I think one of the biggest things about probiotics, I'm sure you find as people come in, there's a lot of confusion around it. What should you take? How much should you take? The range between there's so many out there, and what's the right range?
There's a lot of right answers and there's no right answer. So I'm going to give you my answer. I think that everything that we take into our body should always come first from food.
Right.
So I'm going to look at prebiotics first. One of my absolute favorite prebiotics in the spring is dandelion. Dandelion's the first flower to come out in the spring. It's that transition point between winter and spring. It's where the body goes from sort of that state of laying fallow to coming back to life and being planted. Dandelion is fabulous for dandelion tea, dandelion greens as they come up. If you have a clean yard, they're wonderful. You can saute them. You can have them in salads. And they're such a wonderful, wonderful prebiotic. They have this really great way of getting in the gut and kind of kicking it back into gear after winter and giving it the prebiotics that it needs so it will grow what it needs to grow. Dandelion is one of my favorite prebiotics, not only the leaves, but the root. The root can be dug up, again, as long as you know you have a clean yard, and roasted like a coffee or a tea. The leaves can be used in tea. It just, to me, is as a spring tonic, it is one of the best things that you can do for yourself as far as boosting the growth of natural bacteria in the gut. Beyond that, it really depends on who you are. There are some people who don't want to do certain types of lactobacillicum, and I really keep it very limited. I carry like 3. They're all shelf stable. I don't do any refrigerated ones because if I sell you a refrigerate only probiotic, we both know you're not going to take it. And I'm going to use your schedule in particular. So you take it home, you'll take one tonight with dinner. You get ready to go to work tomorrow morning. You are not going to stop and think about opening the refrigerator and getting your probiotic. But you're also not going to take one with you to take in the middle of the day because you don't have any way to keep it cold. So people buy them and they never take them.
Right.
So I always do a shelf stable. What I like is a spagyric spore form. So it actually is a freeze-dried spore. It doesn't become active until it gets into that warm, moist environment of the gut, and then it does its sexy little probiotic dance to grow.
That does sound sexy.
It was that was a little. I don't know if that's how probiotics dance or not, but that's sort of how it felt. But that way, you can keep it on the shelf. You can carry it in your purse. You can carry it anywhere with you. You're traveling. You're doing whatever, and you always have it available to you. You don't have to worry about keeping it refrigerated. It's easy to take. So it really is dependent upon the person as to what they need. But I always like to start people with food. Let's look at your food. Let's look at your eating. Are you eating the things that are going to set the stage for healthy growth of good bacteria in your gut? So my basic recommendation to people, dandelion in the spring always. Pushing vitamin A, D, and K foods. D and K need each other. They both need A. Things like grass-fed, grass-finished beef. Not grass-fed, grain-finish. Grass-fed, grass-finished beef. Raw, or as close as you can get to raw, grass-fed, grass-finished butter. It's one of the best things that you should do. Good fats, good solid fats. If you're making scrambled eggs, make sure you add an extra egg yolk in along with it. All of these are things that set the stage for the growth of healthy bacteria in your gut, and more importantly, inhibit the growth of bad bacteria in your gut, which is just as important as growing good stuff. You don't want the bad stuff to get out of check. Some of the quote-unquote bad bacteria we need to have. They need to be there. They have a job to do. We just have to keep them in check, in their biotic cubicle.
In their lane?
In their lane.
So the discussion with prebiotics and probiotics, such a big discussion and a big part of gut health. And I know that you've got a fantastic recipe that we're going to share in a part 2 of gut health because this is such a big topic.
It is a big topic, and that's why we kind of broke it in half, because today we talked about some really basic sort of physical reactions, physical symptoms, I guess, if you will, of gut health or gut ill health, but we haven't even begun to touch on the emotional side of stress and anxiety and what that does to our gut. And I think that really needs to be its own its own happy animal, and the shake / smoothie would make anybody happy, so it goes with the other one.
Oh, it's fantastic. I can't wait for the recipe. I can't wait to talk about the emotional side of gut health. I know a lot of people are interested in hearing more about this because it is the core of what we are. And so addressing these things, so important.
It is important, and we need to look at information that's available to us and how it applies to our lifestyle. I don't believe in a single cookie cutter plan for everyone. Not everybody's going to be able to come off of sugar. I'm not going to tell everybody to come off of alcohol. I'm not going to tell everybody that they need to do dandelion in the spring. I'll make it a suggestion, but it may not be right for them. There's always a path that you have to follow that's right for you. And I think that if we can provide people with little bits of information on, wow, maybe I should look at how much sugar I'm actually taking in, or how much activity I'm actually getting, or how much stress I'm actually under on a daily basis. Maybe we can help them find a better route for them.
And speaking of easing our stress a tad, I think it might be time for a drink.
It is, and you always seem to challenge me on the direction that I'm going with my bourbon. So this week I'm sharing with you one of my all-time favorite, which amusingly enough, everyone has told me that this podcast, how can you have a natural wellness podcast where you talk about bourbon? It's such a contradiction. It's not a thing.
I love the reaction, by the way, when people find out that's what's happening. The reaction is fantastic.
And it's so visceral.
How does that go together?
How does that go together? Because it's a contradiction.
Yeah.
So today I brought you one of my all-time favorite bourbons from the Smooth Ambler Company. Today we are actually having Contradiction, and this bourbon, by God, is made in West Virginia, just like I was. It is a non-chill filtered. It is a full body. This has such an amazing mouthfeel and flavor to it. You are going to like this so much. It is definitely one of my top 5 under $50. And much like me, it's a contradiction.
Love it.
Cheers.
Cheers.